Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome aboard. I am your skipper. This is a show all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists. I do believe that there is so much to celebrate if we only take the time to do so. And we have to take the time to do so, especially in this crazy world when everything's going a little bit awry and it's so wacky and everything. And, today, if you think about it, and this is either going to excite you or it's going to make you a little bit crazy. 3 months from today is Christmas Eve. Can you believe it? Well, today we have a very exciting show because we have a Rockland native right here. Risa Hoag is here, and I am so excited. Risa and I met a few years ago when she was doing a morning, right around the corner. I was able to walk there. She was doing a morning talk show with a mutual friend, Jordan Baker, and we met, and she is so busy that we never get a chance to see each other. She is a publicist. She was born right here in Rockland County in Nanuet, if I'm not mistaken. She went to Nanuet High School. She created the Nanuet Chamber of Commerce. She has done so much here for Rockland County, Orange and Rockland, Westchester. She's worked. We found out that we have so many friends in common. But before we jump into everything, I want to ask you, because I'm all about celebrating, what are you celebrating?
Oh gosh, there's so many answers to that question.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm celebrating right now sitting upright. I've had a tough day. I'm celebrating. It's Friday. Friday is my favorite day of the week. I am celebrating life in general, getting back to normal. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to celebrate. Yeah, I'm celebrating being on your show. This is such an honor. I'm tickled to death. I really am. This is like you've had so many wonderful people on your show, and I feel like, I'm like this little Rockland County person.
Well, you're here too, and I'm so thrilled. It's interesting. On Monday, I had Robert Glazer on the show. I don't know if you got a chance to see that show, but he has actually written a book called Friday Forward. And he has this whole movement. And every Friday, he sends out a newsletter, get on it, everyone, where he sends out these inspirational messages. And it started out with sending out a few messages to a few friends. And it's all about really getting that message out there. And I'm all about celebrating, as you know, and gratitude and everything. And I believe that if we all take the time to really find those things that we are grateful for. And I know that some people out there are going to feel like I need an insulin shot right now. But what are those things that you are grateful for?
Oh, this is for me, this question.
Yes.
It's not rhetorical.
It's not rhetorical.
It's okay.
And for everyone who's listening right now.
And for everybody, take notes. What was the question?
What are the things that you're grateful for right now?
Oh, I am all about lifting people up and always looking on the bright side. When you asked me about, what to call this show, like my tagline, I agonized over that all night long. It kept me up all night long. And I kept thinking, like, whatever I call this will be the name of my book. So I called it Where There's a Will, There's a Way. And every single day is a chance to celebrate. And I feel like whatever you want to do, you can make happen. If you will it, there's a way to get it done. And so every single day I get up, I celebrate life. I celebrate the fact that I have good health, that my parents, God bless them, 90 and 93. I have a fantastic husband. I have two wonderfully giving, caring, successful children. I have a fabulous business. I'm grateful for everything every day. So every day is a chance to celebrate. Every day you wake up is a chance to say it's a new day. I'm starting over.
Absolutely, and amen. I'm glad you mentioned your father, because I do have a photograph here of your dad, and this is you, I think, at 5 years old on the beach. I grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So I'm a beach boy, believe it or not. People may not believe that, but I love the beach. When you see this photograph, what does this photograph evoke for you?
Oh my gosh. So this is me and my dad. It could be Atlantic City or it could be Montauk. And my dad has been such an inspiration my whole life. He is such a role model. He went to work 7 days a week. He owned his own business. And that's, I guess, where I got my entrepreneurial, spirit from. And he always treated everyone with such care and such kindness. And the people who worked for him, a lot of them, were immigrants, and he would hire them if they had the skill and they showed a willingness to work. And he would pay for their cars, and he would pay for their Thanksgiving dinners, and he would pay for their teeth or their dental work. And, he just treated everybody with such kindness and fairness. And I just grew up thinking, about that, and that is a role model, and just working hard and problem solving. My dad he had the coolest store. It was in the Bronx in a funky neighborhood, but it was he fixed two-way radios and TVs. When TVs first came out, he learned how to fix them, and he would put flyers under the door to say, if your TV's broken, I can fix it. And he would bring us all in. We all went, I've one of four, and he would bring us in, and we'd learn to use the cash register, and we'd learn to do inventory. And he'd send us in the back to the workbench with soldering irons, which probably wasn't safe, but we did it anyway, and tubes and diodes and things. And he'd say, make something. And we'd make little animals or whatever we made, me and my brothers. And, he taught me to problem solve. If I came to him with something, it was broken, it was whatever, he'd say, you figure it out. And at the time it was frustrating. And yet as I was figuring it out and doing it, I was feeling successful. I was feeling like I had accomplished something, and I had worked with my hands. And it's something that I've carried through my whole life. Again, where there's a will, there's a way. If you use your hands, figure out how to do it, think about it in your brain, turn everything upside down, sideways, how does it look if you do that? And I've tried to instill that in my girls too, just problem solve, figure it out. How can you do it? I can give you the answer easily. And I tend to maybe err on that side when they were younger, but now it's, figure it out. So my dad, and he's 93 years old.
God bless him.
And he's just, he's a source of amusement. He's a source of inspiration. So yeah, that's, and of course the beach, who doesn't love the beach?
Now, you mentioned, you've got three brothers.
I have two brothers and a sister.
Okay. My sister is, one of, there are four of us as well, but three brothers. She's the only girl in the family. And so, I remember when my baby brother was born, she crawled under the bed and said she was not coming home until my brother exchanged him for a sister. So, but when you were that 5-year-old girl, I always like to go back to that. And that reason I asked for that photograph is because I always think that is the purest self. It's that self before you start school and peer pressure is added on, and you start becoming what your friends think you should be, what your teachers think you should be or should not be. And I want to know a little bit about that 5-year-old little girl that you were, and what your dreams were, and what you were hoping to be with your life.
Oh my God.
So tell us a little bit about that little girl.
Just so everybody knows, Richard didn't give me any questions ahead. So this is all like.
Well, tell them about the email that you sent me and my response to that.
Yeah, I was like, do you need me to give you questions or are you going to give me questions? It's just like, trust me.
I said, you've got to be kidding me.
Let's see. At 5 years old, what did I want to be? Okay.
Well, what were your dreams? What were your aspirations? Or, I mean, 5 years old, you probably didn't know what you wanted to do with your life. But what was your life like as a 5-year-old? You've already told us about your father and, saying, go out there and do something with your hands. But what was your life like beyond that little workroom? What were you like in school?
I think I was always a really carefree kid. I think I've always been about fun. And I think I was always a carefree kid. I was very blessed. Literally, my kindergarten friends are still my friends now.
That's great.
My high school lunchroom table are still some of my closest friends now. So, and during the pandemic, we Zoomed all the time. And these are people who, oh my God, they're so near and dear to my heart. They are the nicest group of people. And so I grew up surrounded by people and parents of those kids who were just so loving and so caring and so nice. Mm-hmm. And so I think I was a very carefree kid. I was always precocious. I wanted to be an actress. I mean, that's what I wanted to be. I was going to be the next, Liza or Barbra Streisand. I can't sing at all, but I wanted to
tell you something that hasn't stopped some people in this industry.
Well, it may not have stopped me, but other people did because it wasn't going to happen. But I really wanted to be on stage, and actually, one of my favorite dad stories is that. And it probably was kindergarten or first grade, maybe second grade. I got a lead in one of the shows. You can ask, what was the lead? What was the show?
Okay, so what was the show?
Yeah, I don't remember the show, but I was Humpty Dumpty. And my dad spent, 2 weeks building a frame and an egg so that I could be inside the egg and I would be Humpty Dumpty on the stage. And it is a fond memory for my entire family. And I always wanted to be on stage. And so as I grew up, I did do theater in high school, and we were like Glee. We were the nerdy kids in high school. And but I loved it. And that's really what I wanted to be. And yeah. I ended up marrying an actor. So that's how I get my fix for that. So I ended up marrying that. So I'm like Lucy. He comes home and I'm like, is there a part for me? Is there a part for me?
But when did you decide to go another route? I mean, you are such a go-getter. I mean, when I look at your schedule and I see what's going on, and there's not a day that goes by actually where a press release doesn't come through or everything, and your name is not attached to it, and all these events that you're going to, and even through COVID, you kept things out there and kept people informed of what was going on in Rockland County. So God bless you for that.
I really thought during COVID that I would shut down. So when March came and, everything was shut down, I thought I would retire. And I was semi okay with that. I was like, all right, I've had a good run. I'm at 30 years. I've hit the 30-year milestone. I guess I'm good. And the phone never stopped ringing, and it hasn't stopped ringing. And I feel so blessed because of.
Well, can I interrupt for a moment? I want to go back for a moment. COVID, March 12th of last year. That's when the theater shut down. Everything's coming back. Everyone, the Tony Awards are Sunday night. Watch them. Yeah. That's something else to celebrate. But everything shut down on March 12th of last year. What was your schedule like on March 11th?
If I brought up my calendar right now, like, it's frightening.
I can imagine.
When my staff looks at my calendar, like, because they have, they all have Google access to it, they literally are like, oh my God, Yeah, my schedule is crazy, and everybody always says, like, how do you do it all? And I guess, you know what it is? If you love what you do, like, it's a cliche, but if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Mhm.
And I love what I do. I get up every single day excited about the people I'm going to work with, the events I'm going to work on. How can I do something better? What did I miss? What should I have done yesterday that I didn't do? What reporter didn't I reach out to that I should have reached out to? So my schedule is crazy. It got crazier. It continues to be crazy. And the interesting part was, so I worked from my home office for most of my career.
Mhm.
And but I didn't work from home the entire day. I was at meetings. I would run back and forth across the bridge, up and down the county, and all over the place. So when I would finally settle in my office, it was an hour or two or whatever. And when COVID hit and everybody shut down, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I don't have to run out to 42 meetings today. Like, I can stay here and actually get work done. So I was so relieved and grateful again that everything, that I seem to still be working. And, after 3 months, I was like, okay, now I'm over this. Now I want to, get out and do things. And obviously, we couldn't.
Mhm.
And I ended up taking office space in May. And, God works in mysterious ways. In 2019, I spent the better part of the year looking for office space, and none of it panned out. Every space got pulled out from under me. And, again, I would have been paying all of 2020 for office space that I couldn't use because I was getting quite a large space. And so that was a good thing. So I was grateful for that. But in May of this year, I took space in Nyack, and I absolutely love it. And I can work home when I want to, but I have that space if I want to, which is behind me. That's what you can see right there.
Mhm.
But yeah, you know, hybrid events became not hybrid events, but in streaming events, live streaming events became a thing. And so how to do that and what do you do? And, I was fortunate to be working with my daughter, Samantha, who is just, fantastic. And she's now gone on to work for another PR agency, but I'm so glad of what you learned here and how much she helped me. And so we came up with an idea for Catholic Charities of Rockland to do a live Jeopardy show. Now, out of all the things I've done, and there's a list for 30 years, you would have a list. Doing a live Jeopardy show was probably the most stressful thing that we've ever done. Sam did all of the, compiling of the questions. We had to get sponsors, but then we went live. And I'm like I said, where there's a will, there's a way. I was like, I can do this. I'll do it on Zoom. No problem. Well, I had to have everybody on Zoom, which then I realized as you go live, you can't have everybody on Zoom. It only shows like, the person speaking. Then I had to load and edit the commercials that we were doing for each of our sponsors and load them from somewhere on YouTube, somewhere on my computer. When we first went to go live, it didn't go live. It wouldn't go to Facebook, even though I'd practiced 5 times that day. I had to pivot to YouTube right away. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. But, it was like you kept it out there. It ended up being a very successful event. And I'm kind of known for that, like just coming up with like crazy ideas. And then I'm like, we'll figure out how to do it later. But this is a great idea. Let's do this. And the same thing with Meals on Wheels. We're doing Cornucopia, which was an event that they used to do an event that became sort of a tired gala. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we pull in 20 chefs, top chefs in the region, and we'll have them cook tableside in a room for their own table of, 10 guests. Everybody was like, well, that sounds good. What do they need? I said, I don't know. I don't cook. I said, we'll figure that out later. So then, we had to get burners and we had to, all this stuff. But now we're on the 3rd annual and it's coming up at the end of October. And it's an absolutely fabulous event. And the chefs love it as much as the people love attending. So, I just love doing stuff like just trying to figure stuff out and do something different, turn something on its ear. And did I answer any of the questions?
You've answered all of it, and I love it. But I want to go back to how the spark that started it all. What was the first step that you took, and what was that light bulb that went off? I mean, a lot of people have ideas. A lot of people, where there's a will, there's a way. But what was that spark and the idea that got you started to create your own PR firm?
So, I worked for, let's try to, for which story to start with. I had my own business that my dad sort of underwrote for me called the Corporate Stork. And what we did was bring new businesses into the world. So we helped them get their equipment and all that kind of thing. And new business, my dad funded it with equipment and whatever, but, I didn't have money to advertise. So I started calling newspapers and basically kind of begging for stories. And the Westchester Business Journal, there was an editor there, Mills Cordy, who was, oh my gosh, he was such a character. But there was an email, right? So I had to pick up the phone, and I kept calling.
Can
And
you give us a time frame when this was?
Oh gosh, 80.
Okay.
85, 86,
Okay.
86.
Okay.
So I kept calling, and he wouldn't take my call. And I refused to take no for an answer. I was like, well, you have to, you have to pick up the phone. You have to hear me out, kind of thing. So finally he picked up the phone and he said, "You are so annoying." And I said, "I know, but I've got you." And he's like, he said, "Give it to me. Give it to me right. You've got 2 seconds." So I said, "Look, it's a mother-daughter business, and my mother works for me, and this is a great story, and you have to write about it." So he was like, "Okay, fine. If it makes you stop calling me, then I'll write about it." So he did, and it was a great story because there weren't mother-daughter businesses back then, and there weren't mother-daughter businesses where the mother was working for the daughter. So he wrote about it, and then I got the New York Times to write about it. And
by the way, I have to ask you, did you see Stephen Colbert last night?
No.
You've got to go and hear the story. Anderson Cooper was the guest last night.
Oh,
and he talked about being Gloria Vanderbilt's son. You've got to find it on the internet. Everybody go and look for this because it is absolutely hysterical. And he says it set the tone for how he is able to do every interview when someone out there is giving him the most outrageous story out there. So, mother-daughter situation. So this is
I adore him, by the way. So if he's watching this, when they ask who would you like to have lunch with, it would be Anderson Cooper. So if Anderson's watching.
Yes, and I'll go with you.
Okay. Perfect. All right, what was your question? Oh
no, so how the business started.
Yeah, so
you got the interview, and after the article ran, I'm assuming.
The article ran, we got other articles, and I ended up liking sort of that, making the story happen, because the business that I had just didn't do well because new businesses didn't have money to pay me to get all their equipment and all their other stuff. So it was a great concept, but not a viable concept. So then I had worked for IBM when I was in college because I could type 120 words a minute. So they were like, "Oh, you're in." So I liked the corporate life. I kind of liked that. I even went out and bought a pinstripe suit, and it was really I loved working at IBM, and I worked in the film and television department purely by accident. So it was great experience because it was sort of you got to go into the studios, which nobody went into. And I worked with the producers. It was really, really fun, but it was also very corporate. So I learned a lot doing that job. So when the corporate stork didn't work out, I said, okay, I want to go back to corporate life. So I found Ernst & Winnie, which then became Ernst Young, and they had ads with spelling errors. They had sent me brochures because I requested them, and they had no way of getting in touch with them. No phone number, no contact information. And I thought they need somebody to coordinate all of this. So again, I started calling and saying, I would like an interview. So 12 phone calls later, again, they were like, "You're annoying."
Okay. Stop. What is it within you? Because a lot of people out there are wondering, where you don't take no, that's a double negative, where you don't take no for an answer and you keep going. I mean, what is the time frame that you put between those calls? I mean, if you get that no, a lot of times, how much time do you wait before you call again to say, or do you keep calling until you get that no?
Well, yeah, see, that's the point, right? So they didn't say no. They just wouldn't take my call. And I'm like, that's unacceptable. Like, you have to hear me out is my thing. Like, if you really believe in something, and you hear this from everybody, if you really believe in something, then if the front door won't open, then go in the side door, try the garage, and that's kind of that's why, again, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, if you really believe in something, the door will open eventually. It may not be the door that you thought it was going to be, or it may be a side door, maybe a window, whatever it is. But so they weren't giving me a no. They weren't responding. And to me, that wasn't acceptable. So it just made me stronger to say, well, I'm going to keep going until you tell me, no, we don't have a place for you. But instead, Ernst Young, I went in and I said, just let me show you what I'm talking about. And I don't know why I had the gumption to do that. I figured, well, I have nothing to lose. What if they say no? I don't have the job anyway. So what difference does it make? So I went in and I brought the ad with the spelling error, and I brought the brochure without the contact information. And I said, you need somebody to coordinate this. And they said, we don't have a job. And I said, all right, make a job. Like, if you think this is important to you, then make a job. So they did. And he said, the managing partner said, I'll give you 6 months. And I said, I'll take 3 months. I said, because I'll know in 3 months and you'll know in 3 months whether, you want me here and whether I want to.
That's great.
So that's what I did. And I ended up staying there almost 4 years before I had friends who I'd worked with in a mortgage company in college. And they asked me to help them start their businesses. And so that's how I went out. And basically, so I kind of, I went into marketing and I went into public relations sideways. I didn't have big agency experience, which, looking back, it was an advantage and a disadvantage. Everything has pros and cons. And so I didn't have any expectations of how it's supposed to be done. I did it the way I wanted to do it. And so I just kind of made it happen. So over the years, I've said, I've wondered in a way, like, I wonder if big agencies do it like this, or is this something they do or not do? And so I've gotten, hints and things over the years. So mostly I think I'm doing okay. But I think that was the genesis of it, was just getting that first story in the paper and the recognition that it brought from people being like, hey, I saw you in the paper, and the excitement that people got. And to this day, you can get social media hits. You can get, we're doing an ad for somebody right now on Facebook. It's got 170,000 views. It's like crazy stuff. But if I get them in the paper, if I get them, like we just had a client in Cranes, people love being in the paper. It's still such a thing, even though newsrooms have shrunk and newspapers have gone away and they've done all their mergers, and and it's in a bit of turmoil. And unfortunately, a lot of local publications have gone away, but it's still, people love seeing themselves in the paper, and people still read the paper. They do. I promise you, they read the paper. So I don't know, it was the excitement of like, hey, look at this, this is cool. They're in the paper. So it was just that. And the sort of the persistence, I kind of like, in a way, I kind of get energized when people say no, because I get frustrated and I go, no, like, I'm going to find a different way to do this then. So what was the
defining moment, though, for you when you felt, this is where I belong, this is my niche, and I know that I'm really good at this?
I think I still suffer from imposter syndrome. I swear. I think everybody does.
I think most of us do. I think most people do.
Yeah. I mean, I still sometimes go, oh God, they're gonna figure out that I really don't know what I'm doing. But like, what motivates me? I think of, is it Sally Struthers? Who's the one who said, you like me, you really like me?
No, Sally Field.
Sally Fields. I knew it was a Sally.
Yeah.
Sally Field. I have this, like, I want people to like me. I want them to go, wow, you did such a good job with that. So I don't know why I need that, but to me, that's like, yay, I did a good job.
Well,
you're happy.
Sitting in this chair, and I've interviewed so many celebrities, some of the biggest names in the business, and people who are just starting out, and everyone wants the validation.
Yeah.
That's the defining factor with every single person. Everybody wants validations, and the other thing is acknowledgement. And I think that you go back to just pick up the phone and acknowledge me. Acknowledge the fact that you're getting those phone calls or that you're getting the email or whatever. Just respond to that. So I also want to, and the next part of that question is, what was that moment when you felt that you had made it? Or do you feel that you're still trying to get to that point where you've made it?
Okay. I do have a defining moment for that. So, I was hired. I had to pitch this. I was hired to be the agency of record for the Tourism Board of Scotland. That was truly a defining moment. So I was connected to an agency that was doing their advertising, but they needed PR. And I went in to pitch just like everybody else, big agencies were pitching. But I went in all by myself and I think I had PowerPoint at that point. We did a PowerPoint presentation, but I had honeymooned in Scotland, my husband and I. So I knew it. I had been there. I knew the romance of it. I knew the beauty of it. We even named, so Samantha's middle name is Skye, Samantha Skye Hoag, after the Isle of Skye. Well, I think when I said that, it nailed it. It sort of sealed the deal. They were like, oh, she really loves Scotland. So, and by the way, I really love Scotland. If you haven't been, go. It's absolutely spectacular. So I fell in love with that account and had a little bit of like, oh my God, but can I make this happen kind of thing. So I was pitching stories and I was working with Howie, I won't get his name right, Howie Nicholsby, whose family owns the oldest kilt manufacturer in Scotland, in Edinburgh, located in Edinburgh. And he was making kilts. His family did traditional kilts. He was making kilts out of leather and PVC and like really interesting, cool kilts, and made them with cell phone pockets and stuff. So he was like my, a big part of my pitch, because he was so interesting and it was different about how, Scotland was current and all of that kind of thing. So I was pitching a story to CBS Sunday Morning about the evolution of the kilt, which I thought was like a really cool angle. So the producer said to me, and I forget her name, but I can picture her right in front of me. She said to me, okay. And there was the Tartan Day parade was coming up, which was the beginning of April. And so that was another hook. And the producer said to me, if you can get me Sean Connery, I'll do the piece.
Wow.
So I said, okay. Again, like, give me a challenge, right? So I hung up the phone and I thought, oh my God, like, how am I going to get Sean Connery? So I called the Tourism Board of Scotland and I said, okay, so I've got a great story. I've got a great, opportunity, but I need Sean Connery. So they were like, oh, okay, here's the number. Call his assistant, whose name was Sean, and tell him what you need. I was like, seriously? Like, that is fantastic. So I got on the phone and I called his assistant and I told him that, CBS Sunday Morning wanted to do this story on the evolution of the kilt, but I needed, an interview with Sean. And he said, oh, yeah, no, we can make that happen. And I thought, oh my God. So I was just beside myself. So I said, okay, so let's work out these details, right? So they said, okay, well, Sean will be at, because he was the Grand Marshal of the Tartan Day parade that year. So he was coming to New York and he was going to go to the Tartan Ball. Okay, like this is everything of a little girl's dream.
Planets are lining up.
Oh, honest to God, it was the most fantastic thing. So they say, okay, you're going to meet him at the Waldorf Astoria. Even better, right? So I'm like, okay. So now my friend was running the Roosevelt Hotel. So I said to him, I need a room. He says, okay. So I have Howie Nicholsby also have a room. We stay over and we get ready to go to the ball. And Howie is wearing his pinstripe kilt, which is just fantastic. And I'm dressed in this magnificent ball gown, right? And I'm all like, done up and ready to go. And we go outside to hail a cab. No cabs. there is a giant fire in Manhattan and there's no cabs. And nobody's moving. And I'm like, no. I am not missing the opportunity to meet Sean Connery and make this story happen. Like, I don't care how I need to get there, but I'm getting there. So we find a rickshaw. Okay. And it was like, I don't think they were even like, I don't remember ever seeing a rickshaw in Manhattan before this, but we're going there. So we get in this rickshaw and, you know, he's got his kilt on. I've got my gown on and I'm hiking it up into the thing. And the guy's going on the sidewalks. I'm saying to him, I don't care how you get us there. Like, you just get us there. Sure enough, he goes on the sidewalks and he gets us there. So now we're there and I'm, you know, calming myself down. And we're there maybe 15, 20 minutes. And in walks Sean Connery with his lovely wife and his assistant. And I see him in the other room. And now the CBS crew had arrived and they're all there waiting. And now his assistant comes over, introduces himself, and he says, okay, you know, I'll bring Sean over because I said, you know, they're ready for you. So he brings him over, and Sean Connery is, this close to my face. And he says, Risha, so nice to meet you, Risha. Oh my God. It was such a moment. So, and of course, this is before selfies. This is before phones could take, you know, but there was B-roll, and I begged the producers for the B-roll, couldn't get the B-roll. There were people with regular, you know, cameras, but of course I have no real proof of this other than my memory. But so it went on, and they did a fantastic piece, which you can see on my YouTube channel. Actually, it lives there, and that night was just, sitting in the Waldorf Astoria at the Tartan Ball, you know, having dinner and having the CBS piece come off, and then seeing it the following Sunday. And it had an audience of like 4 million people. And I thought, that's it. I did it. Like, I made it. And I thought, I made this all happen, the entire thing, from winning the account to getting this story done. And it was a really long piece too. CBS Sunday Morning does such nice long pieces. And I think that for me was really a turning point. I thought, okay, like, I can make it happen. I know what I'm doing. So
how do you pitch a story like that to CBS? I mean, you come up with the idea, or was it just the idea that it was coming from the Department of Tourism, or, you know, it just was all the planets coming together for that? I mean, was it an easy thing just to follow through with everything? You know, you just described how all this came together, but, you know, were you able to, after that happened, did that open other doors for you in terms of CBS Sunday Morning? Or was that just a one-time situation with them?
No, it didn't open any doors. No, you know what? Every story is, every story has to have a hook, and every story has to have something that makes it interesting to the media. And that was true from the beginning of time to now. Right. And pitching is, you know, it's basically finding the hook, but it's also understanding who you're pitching, right? And that's where it becomes an art, because sending out press releases and just sort of blanketing is, you know, like, you have to do that, right? If you're doing to local things and they just want the news, and you're sending out the press releases and you're alerting people, and that's good and that's important. But the art of pitching is truly an art. And a good example is, so Joe Connolly. I've known Joe Connolly, who's the small business reporter at WCBS in New York. I've known Joe for probably 40 years, like from before I started this business. And I just adore Joe. Everybody knows Joe, adores Joe. He's just a fantastic person. And I've worked with him a lot over the years. But what I've learned from Joe is, you know, I listen to Joe and I hear the way he reports, and I listen to what's important to him and how he crafts what he says. And so when I pitch Joe, I pitch him in the sound bites that he would say them in. In other words, I almost do his homework for him. And I say, this is how Joe would love this story, because this is how he would say this story. And he's only got unlike CBS Sunday Morning, which could do a 4, 5, 7-minute
Mhm.
piece, whatever, Joe's got his 60 seconds or whatever he's
Mhm.
got. He will sometimes do a longer piece, obviously. But so I will write for him in the format that I know he'll read it and go, oh, I can hear myself saying that. And
Mhm.
so that's the art of pitching, is understanding who you are pitching. How do they write? What do they write about?
Mhm.
What's their focus? Because if you are speaking right to them versus like, hey, here's a great story, you're showing respect for them. You're showing that you have read what they write, that you care about who they are as a writer, and you care about the what they write about. And so that's really the art of pitching. And it's not easy. The relationships are one thing, right? So it's great
Mhm.
for me to be able to, I can pitch Joe more easily than I can pitch other people because I know Joe. He'll look at every email I send him, right? Thanks, Joe, if you're watching.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of noise out there right now. I mean, it's 24/7. And I remember, when 9/11 happened, that it was at that moment that things were happening at such a rapid pace that was when we started getting the crawl on the bottom of our TV, and we're getting news stories that are coming across. You were getting two screens at the same time. Everything was being bombarded at us. People are walking around with their phones now and they're seeing everything and they're watching the news. How do you break through all of that noise to get your stories out there and finding your stories into the right audience at the right time and making sure that it's going to hit?
I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. So I always say when I'm teaching about PR, I always say the way we got the news when we were kids, right? Our parents went to the end of the driveway and there was a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So they came home and they read it, and that's where the news was. At 6 o'clock, you turned on the news, or 7 or whatever, and you listened for a half an hour, and you turned it off, and then you did other things. And so you all got the same news pretty much, right? Except ABC, CBS, whatever. You all pretty much got the same news, and everybody was reading the journal news or whatever they were reading. As we've gotten, the outlets have gotten diverse, which is a good thing, but it also means dilution, right? So a lot of where you want to pitch your story, you've now got more outlets, which is good, but you've got less eyeballs on those outlets, right? So it is complicated in terms of cutting through the noise. But it goes back to, the first thing I say to people when I take on a new client is, who's your target audience? And if they say to me, everybody, that's where I go, okay, no, because it's not everybody. I don't care what you're selling. It's not everybody. There's a reason that certain people buy certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that there's whatever number there is, hundreds of different brands of cars. If it didn't matter, you just have one car and everybody would drive the same car.
Exactly.
People buy cars for different reasons. They buy them for price. They buy them for prestige. BMW doesn't say they're BMW, we have a great car to get you to work. BMW is a driving machine. Right? That's the difference, right? So they're speaking to somebody, a target audience who wants a driving machine. So there's different audiences that you're pitching and that you're targeting, and you have to know where that audience is. Now, that audience could be in a couple of different places, but depending on what your budget is, you have to decide, okay, well, where am I going to target? Where am I going to get the biggest bang for my buck? So it is really hard to cut through all of the noise. But that's another reason why consistency counts, and when people talk about marketing budgets, I tell them it doesn't matter if you hire me or not, but you need to commit to a year, going forward, like the whole year, and keep going forward, because you're competing for all of those eyeballs in all of those places. So it's a matter of knowing the audience that you're pitching as far as the reporters go, so that you are pitching and getting the story done. But it also depends on where your target audience lives. What are they doing? What are they reading? What are they watching?
Now, when someone comes to you and what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about what it is that you do or that you don't do as a publicist in today's world? With social media and everything that's out there, what are some of the biggest things that people are expecting of you that you absolutely cannot deliver, no matter what the ball game is?
Don't tell me I can't deliver something.
Putting someone on the moon.
For anybody is guessing, that is me in my
Okay.
actual office. Just in
Okay.
case anybody's there.
Yes.
Misconceptions. I think many people don't understand the different components of marketing. So what I do is marketing, and GMG stands for Global Marketing Group. And that's what it was when I started out. So 30 years ago, it was Global Marketing Group because I wanted to sound really, really big. And then over the years, it became, I shortened it to GMG PR. But I think a lot of people just don't understand marketing. And marketing encompasses, so many things. It's all of the components. It's branding, it's public relations, it's social media, it's advertising, it's direct mail, it's radio ads, it's TV ads. It's all of those pieces of the puzzle. And I think most people really don't understand what each of them are. I have a little graphic that I put on LinkedIn not that long ago that showed the difference between advertising and PR. So people will say, they'll call it advertising when they're actually talking about, an article, or they'll call something PR when it's really, advertising. So I think there's just sort of a misunderstanding of what each of the components are, and then the process and the work that goes into it, and there was a PR guy that was sort of a guru back in the day when I started my business. And I asked him one time, I was having trouble getting a story done. And I asked him if he would call somebody at the New York Times for me. And he said, well, tell me what the story is. And I told him, and I said, what would you charge me, by the hour? I said, what would I pay you? And he said, I don't charge by the hour. He said, it'll take me 2 seconds to call up and get this story done. He said, you're not paying for my time, you're paying for my experience.
Wow.
And I never forgot that. And so when people ask me, like, what's your hourly rate? And I'm like, it's irrelevant, because you're not paying for my hour, you're paying for my, 40 years of experience, and the fact that you can pick up the phone and call somebody and make an article happen. But at the same time, while I may be able to call Joe and get an article done, at the same time, I'm doing all the research for the other things. We can spend hours and hours and hours and hours researching and pitching a story before something gets accomplished. But like I said, I don't like to take no for an answer. So I call myself a little bit of a pit bull where I just kind of hang on and I'm like,
I love that about you. Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a client that was I love working with nonprofits. I work with a ton of nonprofits because you can be even more of a pit bull with a nonprofit. You can just keep going after the story because it's for a good cause. And I had a client and they said, well, how long are you going to do this for? And I said, I'm going to do it until I feel satisfied that I've done a good job for you. So it's like, it isn't like, okay, I'm sorry, I spent a week and I didn't get anything, I mean, at the end of the day, it's my reputation. It's my brand. And I want someone to walk away and say, wow, she committed and she worked her butt off to get this done. Because again, they like me. They really like me,
Well, I want to ask you in closing on this part of this, with everything, I mean, since you first started in this business, there have been a lot of changes in terms of social media and everything. What are some of the biggest changes that have happened in the business that you absolutely love that have changed in the business? And what are some of the things that you absolutely miss that are no longer in place that were there when you first started?
Okay. So for the longest time, there wasn't email, which is so hard to even understand. Right. So for the longest time, anything that we did was picking up the phone and making calls. Or, I can remember back in the day where I had my whole family involved with, putting together press kits, into folders and then putting labels on them and taking them to the post office and mailing them out. That was the whole history of PR was like that for so long. If you did a chart, you'd have it was all normal, stay the same. And then all of a sudden you'd have this blip, which was email. And I think the evolution of that, the ability for you to now send things digitally was an enormous evolution of PR. I had a secretary for a long time that she actually came to my house, and she did all of that work for me, the admin work and the stuffing. I mean, we did it together, but the stuffing and the envelopes and the labeling and all of that. And when email came, it got to be like, oh, like there's a lot of things she doesn't have to do now. And so it changed the whole nature of the business was email. And then not long after that was social media. And I remember meeting with a PR woman who was older than me. And we met actually in Nyack. She was from Connecticut. And I remember her saying, like, do you know about social media? Like, do you know about Facebook? And I was like, well, what do you mean? It has nothing to do with PR. It has nothing to do with what I do. And she was like, no, you need to know about this. And I remember thinking like, oh, okay, I better get on this bandwagon. And so that was a big change. Just that whole, the onslaught of all of the tools, all of the opportunities. So in a way, I miss the simplicity of life before that. It was really more about pitching stories and the real sort of, the real old fashioned public relations work that we did. This has made it more complicated. It changes so much. I teach LinkedIn all the time, and I'll go on to teach and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was there yesterday and it's not there today.
Right.
It changes so much, and you have to know so much, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And, there's so many more things to know. So that's, it's exciting, annoying. It's, all those things.
Well, it's funny. A friend of mine's daughter the other day, she was talking about answering services. And I worked for the Green Room Answering Service when I first came to New York. And she was describing what that world was like with the answering services. And she said someone would actually take your messages. She says, that seems pretty invasive, doesn't it? And her mom said, you post your entire world on Facebook every day and you're worried about invasiveness. So, Risa, first of all, I mean, we are actually towards the end of our show, which I can't believe. This time has flown by. But, before we wind up, I do this thing at the end of my shows. This is my homage to James Lipton and Inside the Actors Studio. So I've just got some fun questions that I'm going to ask you that are not necessarily about what we've been talking about for the last hour. But I want to ask you, and these are just fun questions for you. So just have fun with it. The first question is, how do you flirt best?
How do I flirt best?
Yes.
I have a husband. I don't flirt.
Does he flirt?
No.
Do you flirt with each other?
Yes.
Well, that's what I mean.
I don't know. You have to ask him. Okay. I don't know how
He's my next interview.
Yes.
Now, what would you most like to change about the industry that you are in?
Oh gosh, I need time to think about these things, Richard. What would I most like to change about the industry I'm in? Can I pass and come back?
You can pass and come back. Okay, so you're going to pass on that. What is the thing that you'd most want a therapist to help you with about the industry that you're in?
These are all really hard questions.
These are my James Lipton questions.
What would I change? All right, wait. You know what? It is okay. Changing what's in the industry. There is so much this is kind of funny. There's so much rejection in my industry, right? So you can pitch a million stories and not get any. But the reason I got out of acting was because there was so much rejection.
There is?
I was like, what do you mean I'm not right for that? Of course I'm right for that.
No.
So yeah. So I think,
I'll tell you what my thoughts are on rejection. One of my dearest friends who may be watching right now is Russ Woolley. I think you know Russ, one of my dearest friends. And he taught me this. He says, rejection is God's protection. And anytime when I reach out, for an interview and the agent or the producer, it's always, if I speak directly to the celebrity, 99.9% of the time I get the interview. But if I deal with an agent or a producer or a manager, I get rejected. And they don't think it's a big enough platform, or it's not going to be good enough for their client or whatever. It's a rejection. And anytime that happens, I go, rejection is God's protection. So that's the way that I look at it. What is the most inexplicable thing that has ever happened to you?
The most what?
The most inexplicable thing that has ever happened to you in this industry.
Inexplicable.
Don't mention names because it's all about celebrating. And I want to know how you got through it.
So, inexplicable meaning I can't explain why this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So there's someone in our industry who totally dissed me in a very public way, in a very public setting.
Mm.
And I was mortified. And how did I get through it? Was I remembered that it made her look way worse than it made me look. And that's how I got through that.
Good for you. In what way, I love this question, in what way are you most unique?
I think I'm most unique because I don't take no for an answer. I refuse to back down. I think that I love being creative. I love being different. I love thinking outside of the box, which is a cliche, but I really love turning things on their ear. And I think that I just like to be really quirky, creative, and come up with ideas that people go, really? Can we do that? And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. I think that's one of my biggest strengths, is just being able to say, yeah, we can do that. We'll figure it out. We'll do it.
And you may have already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What would you most like to stop in this industry?
Stop in this industry? Social media changing every other day. Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Yes. Don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to say my closing remarks.
No, wait. Can I just say that my daughter Kelly will I need to say a shout out to my daughter Kelly too, who is fantastic and runs her own business and has an entrepreneurial spirit as well. And her company is Root to Rise Health. So look her up.
And
I have to give her a plug. She's wonderful.
You send me the link, and I will make sure that link is also in the body of the information that I put on YouTube.
I will do that. She is very unique as well.
That's great. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere else for the last hour, and I don't take for granted that at all. So thank you for being here. If this was your first time here, my hope is that you will consider subscribing to Richard Skipper Celebrates. I am all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. Not only Risa, but check out the other artists that I've already celebrated, and the artists that are coming up in the days, the weeks, the months, and hopefully the years ahead. I also hit the like button if you did indeed like today's show. Leave a comment. Risa, also tell your friends, if you get any comments, leave a comment on YouTube, because what that will do is that will increase the ranking of this video. And it's all about getting it up to the top of the ranking. And I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the fifth name that pops up, reach out with a phone call, not an email message, not a text message, but a phone call, and let that person know what they mean to you. Because as a dear friend of mine says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But I always say that if you're going to be out in a boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. Now, Risa, I'm going to leave the screen, and I'm going to give you the final word. You've got it to yourself. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or any message that you want to say about anyone that's watching right now, I thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and the gifts that you're going to continue to give to the world. And you are really the best at what you do. And I thank you for being here today. You're always worth celebrating. So thank you.
Oh, Richard, I really want to thank you. This has been such a joy, and you are such a joy. When we first met with at Jordan's house, I was just so impressed with you and your energy and your enthusiasm and gift for life. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight to be with you and your audience. And like you said, life is short. Go out, use your gifts. And we used to tell our girls as they went off to school, all God wants is for you to make somebody smile today, and that's it. If you can lift somebody up and make somebody smile, then the world's a better place. So thank you all for watching. Thank you. Thank you, Richard.